The flower pot shattered across the hallway floor. Everyone turned. Colonel Hayes stormed out, his voice cutting through the air. "People like you don't belong here." I gripped the mop tighter, my hands shaking. That was the moment my silence finally broke. "My name is Bailey Foster. I'm 32, a widow, a woman of color. For 3 years, I've worked as a janitor at Fort Henderson, a place that never really saw me. Every morning before dawn, I push my cart down the echoing halls and wipe away the traces of other people's importance. My world is bleach, footsteps, and silence. Sometimes I whisper, 'Good morning,' but no one answers. The young soldiers stride by, boots sharp, laughter careless. 'Hey, brown girl, you missed a spot.' Don't know where they find people like her." Their words sting, but I keep working. It's easier to stay quiet, easier to be invisible than to fight. At lunch, I sit in the corner of the cafeteria, eating quickly. A lieutenant once smiled at me. "You people work hard," he said. "My mother would have loved to have someone like you at home." I smiled back. "Yes, sir." It was simpler than explaining the insult hiding behind his kindness. Still, I see everything. The way they talk over me. The way I'm treated like part of the wall. I tell myself I can endure it. I've endured worse. I've endured loss, folded flags, empty nights. But this morning, my patience broke like that pot on the floor. It happened so fast. One wrong turn, one slip of the mop, and the terracotta fell, cracking the silence with a sharp crash. Water spread across the tiles, soil at my shoes. Then the door opened. Colonel Hayes filled the doorway. "What the hell are you doing here?" His voice was cold, sharp. I tried to explain. "I was just cleaning, sir." He cut me off. "You people can't follow signs, can't even read them, can you?" Laughter rippled behind me. My throat tightened. "It was an accident," I said. He stepped closer, voice low and venomous. "Accident or carelessness? People like you always break what you touch." The words sank deeper than he knew. I wanted to vanish, but his eyes held me there, stripping away the little dignity I had left. A camera clicked. Someone whispered, "This is gonna be good." Hayes turned to a guard. "Search her. I want to see what she's hiding." The guard hesitated. "Sir, she's a civilian." "Do it," Hayes snapped. "She's on my base. She follows my rules." The hallway went silent. The laughter died. I could hear my own breath, unsteady but growing stronger. My hands still shook, but not from fear anymore. I'd spent years blending in, swallowing words, surviving. But this time, I couldn't stay small. Something inside me, something I'd buried long ago, rose back to the surface. I straightened up, met his eyes, and spoke quietly. "If you want to humiliate me, sir, you'll have to look me in the eye while you do it." He froze, then smirked. "Is that a threat?" "No," I said, holding his gaze. "Just the truth." The moment stretched. The guard looked down. The phones stopped recording. My heart pounded like a drum in the silence. I knew what would come next: humiliation, exposure. But for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid. Because this was the day my silence ended, and the truth about who I am began to speak for itself. I always sit alone at lunch. Same table, same corner. The cafeteria smells of grease and bleach. I eat quickly, quietly, hoping no one notices me. But they always do. A group of young white soldiers pass by, trays in hand, voices loud enough to cut through every sound. I heard they only hired her because they ran out of real help, one says. Another laughs. Yeah, people like that are lucky to be here at all. Their words sting more than they think. I keep my eyes on my food, pretending I didn't hear. But pretending has a weight of its own. When they sit down, they keep going. You missed a spot this morning, sweetheart, one calls out. Guess she's too busy counting her welfare checks, another adds. Laughter ripples through the room. A few others glance at me, some pitying, most indifferent. I breathe slowly, forcing the air not to tremble in my chest. A middle-aged officer walks by and stops near my table. His smile is polished, the kind that hides condescension. You do good work, he says. My mother would have loved to have someone like you helping around the house. He grins, proud of what he thinks is kindness. Yes, sir, I answer softly. He nods, satisfied, and walks away. He doesn't hear the quiet snickers behind him. I eat the rest of my lunch in silence. Every sound, the scrape of chairs, the clang of trays, feels louder than it should. I stare at my hands, rough and dry from the chemicals, the same hands that once held a rifle steady. Now they just hold a plastic fork. Two soldiers whisper behind me. Bet she can't even speak proper English. Probably married some poor guy for papers, another says. Their laughter follows like a shadow. I stand, carry my tray to the trash, and someone mutters, Careful, she might steal something. The words hit harder than they should. I turn just enough to meet his eyes. I don't need to steal anything, I say quietly. I've already lost enough. He freezes, unsure if I meant it as defiance or sorrow. I leave before he can decide. In the locker room, I find another note taped to my door. Stay in your lane, janitor queen. The handwriting is neat, almost playful. I take it down, fold it once, and throw it away. I don't let myself cry. Not here, not where the walls have ears. That afternoon, someone replaces my cleaning solution with the wrong chemical. My throat burns after one breath. When I report it, the supervisor sighs. Don't take it personally, Bailey. Boys will be boys. I nod, though my chest still aches. That's what survival looks like here, nodding. Back in the hallway, I pass a mirror and catch my reflection. The uniform looks too big, the color dull against my skin. My posture has changed over time. Smaller, cautious. But somewhere in my stance, I still see the soldier I used to be. They think they know who I am. The cleaning lady, the woman with the mop, the brown face they never have to remember. They don't know that I once wore a different uniform, one that came with rank and pride, one that carried weight. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice coming here. Maybe I thought peace would live inside routine. Maybe I thought service, in any form, still mattered. But here, service means silence. Dignity has to hide in plain sight. As I leave the cafeteria, one of the same soldiers from earlier stands near the door. Hey, he calls out, grinning. You missed a spot on the floor. I stop, meet his eyes, and say softly, and you missed what respect looks like. He blinks, unsure what to say. I walk away before he can reply. Outside, the sunlight hits my face, warm but distant. The base buzzes with drills and orders, a world that once saluted me, now barely sees me. Still, I keep walking. Because I know who I am, even if they never will. They call me the cleaning lady, the help, the brown woman in the corner. But one day, when truth walks back into this place, they'll remember my real name, Staff Sergeant Bailey Foster. and realize they've been walking on the floors of someone who once fought for the very ground beneath their feet. The flower pot slipped from my hand and shattered across the hallway floor. Water spread in thin streams, soil staining the white tiles. I froze, breath caught halfway. For 3 years I'd mopped these halls in silence, but that sound, that sharp crack, changed everything. The heavy office door swung open. Colonel Richard Hayes stepped out, his boots echoing like gunfire. "What the hell are you doing here?" he barked. "I'm sorry, sir," I stammered. "It was an accident. I'll clean it right away." His gaze swept over me, not as a person, but as a mistake. "An accident? You people always have accidents." I flinched. "Sir, I didn't mean—" He cut me off. "You think mopping floors gives you permission to walk in restricted areas? Can't you read the damn signs?" The hallway went still. A few soldiers had turned to watch. I could feel their eyes on me, hot and heavy. "I'll finish here and leave, sir," I said quietly. Hayes took a step closer. "No, I want to make something clear." His voice lowered, dripping with disdain. "People like you don't belong here. You should be grateful we even let you in the building." Behind him, someone laughed under their breath. Another whispered, "Damn, he's really doing this." The words burned, but I kept my head down. "Please, sir, let me clean the mess." He stared at the broken pieces at his feet, then back at me. "Clean? That's all you're good for, isn't it?" I said nothing. Silence was safer. Always had been. Then suddenly he turned to the guard beside him. "Search her." The young guard hesitated. "Sir, she's a civilian worker." "I said search her!" Hayes's voice cracked like thunder. "I don't care who she is. I want to see what she's hiding." The laughter stopped. The guard froze. The hallway felt too small for all the air we weren't breathing. I looked around. Soldiers shifting, pretending to check their phones. 1 or 2 recording. No one would stop him. No one ever did. "Sir, please," I said softly. "There's nothing to search." He took another step forward. "That's what they all say. People like you, always sneaking where you don't belong, always thinking you're equal." The words landed like blows. I felt my pulse in my ears. "I said take off your jacket," he ordered. My chest tightened. "Colonel Hayes, please. Now." For a moment, I couldn't move. The walls tilted, the lights buzzed too loud. Every eye was on me, waiting to see how low I'd bow. I could feel humiliation clawing up my throat, but something inside me snapped. I raised my head slowly and met his gaze. My voice came out quiet but steady. "If you want to humiliate me, sir, do it properly. Right here, in front of everyone." He blinked, taken aback. "What did you just say?" I took a breath. "You want to see what I'm hiding? Fine. But when you do, you'll remember it for the rest of your life." The hallway fell silent. The guard looked away. One of the soldiers lowered his phone. Even Hayes seemed to hesitate, confusion flickering behind the anger in his eyes. "You're making a mistake," he muttered. "No," I said. "You are." The words came from somewhere deep, somewhere that hadn't spoken in years. The place where I used to stand in uniform, where orders were given to me, not at me. I could feel my hands shaking, but I didn't hide it. The sound of water dripping from the broken pot filled the silence. It sounded like a countdown. Hayes clenched his jaw. "Then prove it," he said. I straightened, my heart pounding, but my voice no longer trembled. "All right, Colonel. You asked for it." The soldiers looked at each other, uneasy now. They didn't know what was coming. Neither did he. But I did. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't the woman with the mop anymore. I was the soldier they'd forgotten. And this was the moment they would remember me. The hallway was full. Voices, footsteps, the rhythm of a normal morning, until his shout cut through it all. "Hold her right there!" Every sound stopped. Heads turned. I froze under the fluorescent lights, the broken flower pot still glistening behind me. Soldiers crowded near the door, whispering, waiting to see what would happen next. A young female guard stepped forward, nervous. "Sir, she's a civilian. Maybe we should—" Hayes spun on her. "Then follow my order, Corporal, or would you like to join her?" The woman stiffened, silent. I could feel every breath in the room press against me. The weight of their stares was almost physical. Curiosity, judgment, something darker. Hayes turned back, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "We're going to settle this now. Let's see what she's hiding." Someone laughed quietly. Another soldier pulled out his phone, pretending to tie his boot while recording. A few others whispered, "He's serious? No way she's gonna do it." My hands shook. I could taste the salt in my mouth, a tear that hadn't fallen yet. I looked at the polished floor, at the mess I'd made, the only proof I didn't belong. Then I heard him again. "Take off the jacket," I whispered. "Please, Colonel, not here." He stepped closer, his breath sharp. "Right here, Miss Santos. Now." A ripple of laughter spread down the corridor. Someone whispered, "This is insane." Someone else muttered, "She should have stayed quiet." My chest burned. I wanted to disappear, but there was nowhere to go. No corner small enough, no space safe enough. My fingers gripped the edge of my uniform jacket. My voice trembled, but I forced the words out. "If you want proof, sir, I'll give it to you." He folded his arms, smug. "Go ahead then." My hands moved slowly. I unzipped my jacket, the sound impossibly loud in the silence. I could feel the air shift, the crowd leaning in, breaths held. I slipped it off my shoulders, revealing the thin gray shirt beneath. My skin prickled under the lights. Someone coughed. Someone else murmured, "Oh my God, she's actually doing it." I took a breath, steadying myself. "You said I was hiding something." Hayes's tone turned mocking. "That's right. So what's it gonna be, Ms. Santos? Show us." The room seemed to shrink. My pulse was a drum in my throat. My fingers went to the buttons of my shirt. "Sir, this isn't right," the young guard whispered again. "We should stop." "Quiet," Hayes snapped. "She's cooperating. Let her finish." I looked straight at him. My tears had stopped now. My voice was low, clear. "You wanted humiliation. But after today, you'll remember me for something else." And then, slowly, I undid the last button and turned. The bright light spilled across my back. The room fell silent. No whispers, no laughter, only the soft hum of the air vents. For a moment, no one moved. What they saw wasn't weakness. It wasn't shame. It was a mark. Dark ink, curved and sharp, stretched across my skin like a battle flag. No one spoke. Even Hayes didn't breathe. That was the moment everything changed. The air was heavy, still electric, as I turned my back to them. The light from the ceiling hit my skin, and the room seemed to stop breathing. Gasps rippled through the hallway like the first crack of thunder before a storm. Across my shoulders, ink and memory came alive under the glare. the emblem of the 75th Ranger Regiment. Its wings and dagger bold against my skin. Below it, black numbers carved deep, coordinates, dates, and the word Afghanistan. Someone whispered, "Oh my God!" Another voice, trembling with disbelief, That's the Ranger insignia." The hallway went silent. Phones dropped. Boots clicked as soldiers straightened without thinking, instincts overtaking shock. I could feel all their eyes on me, the same eyes that had laughed, judged, dismissed, now wide with shame and awe. I turned around slowly, meeting Hayes's frozen stare. His lips parted, but no sound came out. His face had gone pale. My voice was steady, low, carrying down the corridor. "My name is Staff Sergeant Bailey Foster, 12 years of service in the United States Army, Ranger qualified, deployed 3 times to Afghanistan." No one moved. I took another step closer to him. "I left the military after my husband was killed in action. I thought I could find peace here, away from the uniforms, the orders, the memories. But I was wrong." Hayes swallowed hard, color draining from his face. You were a Ranger?" "Yes, sir," I said. "I am a Ranger. You don't stop being one just because the war ends." Behind him, the young soldier who'd been recording lowered his phone and whispered, "Sir, we should—" But his voice faltered. He didn't know what to say. The female guard stepped forward first. She straightened her posture and saluted. The sound of her palm hitting her brow echoed sharply. Then another soldier followed, and another. Within seconds, the entire hallway stood at attention, a row of salutes facing the woman they'd humiliated. I felt tears sting my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. I looked at Hayes again, the man who'd called me "you people," who'd tried to strip me of dignity I'd earned long before he ever wore his stars. "Do you see it now, Colonel?" I asked softly. "What you tried to take from me isn't something you can touch. My uniform may be gone, but my honor isn't." He opened his mouth, then closed it. The authority that had filled his voice minutes ago had vanished. He looked smaller now, like the floor beneath him had shifted. No one spoke. The only sound left was the low hum of the lights and the steady rhythm of soldiers standing tall, their respect reclaiming the silence. I reached for my jacket and slipped it back over my shoulders. My voice, when it came again, was quiet but unshakable. "You wanted to see what I was hiding, Colonel Hayes. Now you have." Then I turned away, the hall parting before me. And for the first time in years, every step I took echoed not with shame, but with the sound of dignity returned. The next morning, Fort Henderson no longer felt the same. Whispers followed every corridor. The video had spread faster than wildfire. Every soldier, every officer had seen it. The janitor who wasn't just a janitor, the woman they'd mocked standing tall beneath the Ranger emblem. By noon, Captain Walsh arrived. Tall, calm, the kind of officer whose authority came from integrity, not fear. His voice echoed through the command office. "We're opening a formal investigation," he said, "effective immediately. Colonel Hayes is suspended pending review." No one argued. No one dared. Witnesses were called one by one. The hallway that had been full of laughter and cruelty was now a place of quiet reckoning. Every man and woman who'd stood there, every phone that had recorded, became part of the truth. In the small, windowless interview room, I sat across from 2 investigators. My uniform was clean, pressed, borrowed from the veterans' office. They asked me to recount everything. I spoke slowly, clearly, not once raising my voice. "Did you feel threatened?" one of them asked. "I felt humiliated," I said softly. "But mostly, I felt invisible, until I refused to be." The other investigator leaned forward. "You understand, Sergeant. This could destroy his career." I looked down at my hands, folded neatly in my lap. "I don't want him destroyed," I said. "I just want respect. The same thing every soldier, every human being deserves." The room went quiet. One of them nodded, writing something down. The air felt lighter after that, like my words had landed exactly where they needed to. Outside, the investigation widened. Statements came in from guards, officers, maintenance staff. Even the female corporal who'd tried to stop the search spoke up. "Hayes went too far," she said. "It wasn't about protocol. It was about power." By evening, Captain Walsh met with me privately in his office. He closed the door gently, not like a superior, but like someone who understood. "They concluded the inquiry today," he said. "The board found multiple violations: abuse of authority, racial harassment, and conduct unbecoming of an officer." I sat in silence, letting the words sink in. "Colonel Hayes," Walsh continued, "has been relieved of command and will face court-martial." For a moment, I couldn't speak. I wasn't happy, exactly. Justice doesn't taste sweet. It just stops the bleeding. I nodded. "Thank you, sir." He looked at me carefully. "You didn't have to handle it the way you did, Bailey, but you did. You reminded all of us what uniform means, even when you weren't wearing it." I smiled faintly. "Respect doesn't come from rank, Captain. You know that." He returned the smile, a small, proud one. "Yes, Sergeant, I do." When I stepped outside, the air smelled different, cleaner somehow, the way the world feels after a storm. A few soldiers crossed my path. Some looked away, ashamed. Others stopped, straightened, and nodded silently. The quiet gesture of respect that doesn't need words. In that moment, I didn't feel vindictive. I didn't even feel victorious. Just free. Hayes's voice still echoed faintly in my mind, the arrogance, the cruelty, but now it no longer had weight. It was just noise fading into distance. For the first time in a long time, I walked down that same hallway without fear. The tiles shone beneath the lights, clean and quiet, as if even the building itself was ready to begin again. 2 weeks passed. The storm had quieted, but its echo still lingered in every corner of Fort Henderson. People spoke softer when I walked by now. Some offered small nods of respect. Others couldn't meet my eyes. The base felt different. Not because it had changed, but because I finally stood in it without lowering my head. One morning, I received a call from the regional command office. The voice on the other end was formal but kind. "Sergeant Santos, General Morrison would like to meet with you in person." My breath caught. The name carried weight, the commanding general of the entire district. 2 days later, I stood outside his office. The door opened, and a tall man in his 50s stepped forward, his posture sharp, his expression solemn. The rows of medals on his chest glinted beneath the light. He looked at me for a long moment before speaking. Then slowly he raised his hand in a formal salute. It wasn't the salute of rank. It was the salute of respect. I hesitated for half a second, then returned it. He spoke quietly. "We failed you, Sergeant. We failed to see who you were, what you had already given to this country." I shook my head. "You didn't fail me, sir. You just forgot that even heroes need to start over sometimes." The faintest smile touched his face. Perhaps. But you reminded us what service really means. Not the uniform, not the medals, the integrity behind them. He gestured for me to sit. The room was filled with photos of units, field operations, and the faces of soldiers who'd come and gone. I noticed a small frame on his desk, a folded flag, and a woman's portrait beside it. He caught my glance and nodded softly. My wife. She passed during my second tour. I know loss, Sergeant. Maybe that's why your story stayed with me. For a moment, the air was heavy with shared silence. Not sorrow, but understanding. Then he leaned forward. We'd like to offer you a position here at Fort Henderson. I blinked. A position? Yes. His voice was steady. As the Veteran Transition Coordinator, you'd help soldiers who are leaving service, those trying to find purpose again, people who've seen too much, lost too much, and don't know how to start over. I took a slow breath. You want me to come back? He nodded. Not as a janitor, as someone who's walked both sides, the battlefield and the life after. You understand something most of us forget. I looked down at my hands, the same hands that had once carried a rifle, then a mop. Hands that had known both war and humiliation. And yet, somehow, they still had strength left. Sir, I said quietly, if my story can help even one of them remember who they are, I'll do it. He stood and extended his hand. Then welcome back, Sergeant. Fort Henderson could use someone like you. I rose, shaking his hand firmly. For a moment, I saw in his eyes something deeper than duty, gratitude, maybe even pride. As I left his office, sunlight spilled across the corridor. Outside, soldiers moved through the courtyard. The same rhythm, the same noise. But this time, it didn't feel like a place that rejected me. It felt like home, rebuilt. For years, I'd been the invisible one, the woman they stepped past without seeing. Now I walked back through those same halls not as a ghost, but as someone who had lived, fought, fallen, and risen again. The war in me wasn't over, but for the first time it wasn't about survival. It was about rebuilding. For myself, and for all those who had forgotten that strength can look like kindness, and that dignity, once lost, can always be reclaimed. The morning light spilled through the long hallway, the same one where it had all happened. The same polished floor, the same white walls, the same echo of boots against tile. Only this time, the sound was different. It wasn't fear in my steps anymore. It was purpose. I walked past the spot where the flower pot had shattered weeks ago. The tiles gleamed brighter now, freshly cleaned by someone else. For a moment, I stopped. I could still see it. The crowd, the phones, the humiliation, the silence before the truth broke free. And then, just as clearly, I remembered what came after. The salute, the respect, the change. Down the corridor, a group of young soldiers approached. They slowed as they saw me, whispering at first, then straightening instinctively. The first one to stop was a private barely 20. He raised his hand in a salute. Then another followed, and another. Soon, the entire group stood at attention. No one said a word. They didn't have to. I returned the salute, steady, quiet, proud, and kept walking. My office was just ahead now, the plaque newly mounted on the door. Bailey Foster, Veteran Transition Coordinator, Fort Henderson. The words still felt unreal sometimes, but right. The smell of coffee and old paper drifted from the room. A stack of files waited. Veterans looking for work, for housing, for hope. I smiled. I'd traded my mop for something else. A mission. And maybe that's what life had been trying to tell me all along. That even after the hardest battles, there's another kind of service waiting to be done. I paused by the window, watching two soldiers laugh by the gate, carefree, alive. Somewhere out there were men and women like me, who had survived things no one should, now fighting quieter wars inside themselves. They needed someone to remind them they weren't broken, just unfinished. My voice came softly, in the way it does when memory turns into meaning. I used to mop these floors. Now I help those who once fell on them stand again. Respect isn't born from rank, color, or title. It comes from what we've fought through and what we choose to rise from. The sunlight grew warmer, stretching down the corridor like a new beginning. And for the first time in years, I truly believed it. Dignity never dies. It only waits to be seen again,